Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will analyze the case of Keith Johansen and Brandi Celenza. First I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Keith John Allen Johansen was born on March 10, 1982, and was raised in Clinton, Iowa. At some point he moved to Palm Coast, Florida. He worked as a roofer, but injured his back and ended up with some type of insurance settlement. Keith became romantically involved with a woman named Brandi Ruth Celenza. She was born on March 1, 1993 in Longwood, Florida. Sometime around 2012, Brandi had a son named Rylan from a previous relationship. Keith and Brandi married in May 2017. In early 2018, the couple and Brandi's son moved into a rented 1,200 square foot house at 23 Felter Lane. Keith remained unemployed and lived off his settlement. Brandi was also unemployed. The couple frequently used methamphetamine. Before moving to the timeline of the crime, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Delete Me. Over the past few years, I have covered a lot of stalking cases which involve a perpetrator easily finding personal information online. When people try to get this information removed, they find that it's extremely time-consuming. Fortunately, there is a solution. Delete Me is a subscription service that can eliminate this type of personal information that is for sale online. They have the straightforward mission of removing customers' information from search results and upholding your right to manage and remove your personal information. The privacy experts at Delete Me work continually to remove information from hundreds of data brokers. This gets rid of your personal data like address, occupation, marital status, age, names of relatives, and so on. How does it work? Submit your information to Delete Me, and their experts remove it. After that, they check every 3 months to make sure any new data get removed as well. If you want to get your personal information removed from search results on the web, go to joindeleteme.com/Dr. Grande. Delete Me is offering 20% off their privacy plans to all my viewers with code Dr. Grande. Again, that's joindeleteme.com/Dr. Grande, promo code Dr. Grande. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On April 7, 2018, at 10:37 a.m., 36-year-old Keith Johansen called 911 and requested assistance at his home at 23 Felter Lane. He said that he heard gunshots while in the shower. He found his wife, 25-year-old Brandi Celenza, on the floor next to the bed in the master bedroom. There was no visible blood on her. He told the operator he could see 2 9mm pistols next to her. Keith believed that Brandi may have used a firearm on herself. He could see a wound in her ribs, but he did not want to apply pressure because he was wet and sliding on the floor. He did not want to risk moving Brandi because he was worried he would slip and hurt her or cause a firearm to discharge. Keith also indicated there was too much stuff around her. When the police arrived, they discovered that Brandi was dead. Here is what they found during the course of their investigation. Brandi Celenza had been shot twice in the chest. The first projectile that struck her was a rubber bullet. The second one was not. Both bullets were fired from a Konik TP9 SFX semi-automatic pistol, which was one of the 2 pistols on the floor near her body. Other than Brandi, only Keith and Brandi's 6-year-old son Rylan were in the house. Rylan told the police that he heard his mother scream. There was no sign of forced entry into the house. Just a week or 2 before the shooting, Keith installed what the police described as an elaborate system of cameras in his house. On April 27, the police obtained video surveillance from this home security system. They found some interesting recordings. For example, on April 5, 2 days before the shooting, a camera in the master bedroom captured Keith and Brandi having a heated argument. Keith was upset with her for engaging in self-service activity, so to speak. He made offensive statements about her sexual behavior and threatened to kill her. I'll talk more about this in the analysis. This camera did not capture the shooting because Keith had moved it into another room prior to April 7. Another camera captured Keith on April 7 at 10:33 a.m. in the living room. He could be seen grabbing a pair of pants. The camera captured Keith arguing for about 2 seconds before cutting off. Apparently, it stopped recording because it no longer detected motion. At 10:37 a.m., Keith was captured on camera speaking on the phone with the 911 operator. He was wearing the same jeans he had grabbed 4 minutes earlier. He was also captured removing marijuana from the living room, but according to Keith, at this time, he was checking on Brandi for injuries. Clearly, Keith had been lying. On the same day the police received the video recordings from the camera system, April 27, 2018, Keith Johansen was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. Eventually, he was given an upgrade to first-degree murder. In October 2021, he was convicted, and in November of that year, he was sentenced to a mandatory term of life in prison. In Florida, a life sentence means life without the possibility of parole. Now moving to my analysis. Keith Johansen maintains his innocence, although he does not appear to have any supporters. Initially, he claimed that Brandi must have been the shooter. However, he offered a different story when he testified in his own defense at trial. Here is what Keith said happened on the day of the shooting. For several days, Brandi had been using methamphetamine and had not been sleeping. When Keith was in the shower, Brandi called him to the master bedroom. When he walked in, Keith noticed that Brandi was holding a 9mm pistol. She called him plastic and said he was not her husband. Keith retrieved his own pistol and approached Brandi in an effort to disarm her. She reached out and grabbed his pistol. When she lifted it up, it discharged, striking her in the chest. Keith retreated, but Brandi swung at him. He fired a second shot because she was pointing a loaded weapon at him. Keith admitted to killing Brandi, but maintained that he acted in self-defense. The state, of course, disagreed with the way Keith characterized the shooting. They argued that he was being deceptive. This brings me to the question, was Keith guilty of first-degree murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that he was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. During the 911 call, Keith had various excuses for not rendering aid to Brandi, like he was afraid of slipping because he was wet. When the police arrived, they found that Keith had dry hair and the shower was dry. There was a little bit of water on Keith's body, as if he had splashed it on himself. Brandi had been shot twice in the chest with a gun owned by Keith. He said that Brandi never screamed, but her son told the police his mother did scream. When the police inquired about the security cameras, Keith said he could not remember the username or the password. The system was only a few weeks old. Later, after the police acquired the video, it was revealed that Keith was removing marijuana from the living room while lying to the 911 operator, saying that he was with his wife in the master bedroom. On April 5, 2018, 2 days before the shooting, a camera that had been in the master bedroom captured a vicious argument between Keith and Brandi. Keith made several offensive and threatening statements, evidently after catching Brandi engaging in self-service behavior. The police recovered what was described as a large sex toy. It sounds like Brandi may have been communicating with somebody online during this behavior, which is why Keith thought of this as some type of betrayal. Here are a few examples of what Keith said to Brandi on April 5 while they were in the master bedroom together. Some of these statements are paraphrased. You should carry a gun for self-defense because I am going to have you killed. You can have all my guns because I will probably do something bad with them. I will hurt you or have someone else hurt you. Are you afraid yet? Because I will cut your fingers off. You blanking sick blank. The blanks rhyme with buck and bunt. I'll teach you to blank with me. I will punch you in the blanking mouth. I'm going to do blank you blanking know I can do. I have to get away from you or I'm going to kill you. I will beat the blank out of you. The blank rhymes with buck. I'm going to murder your blank. It rhymes with crass. When asked why he would commit murder, he said, because you are a blanking blank, being a smart blank, doing it next to me, blanking blank. You blanked with the wrong person, dude. You can push a person to beat or kill you because you're a blank. Rhymes with bore. You're blanking lucky I didn't beat the blank out of you. I hope that was worth your blanking life. And show the cops these videos. I don't give a blank. I'd rather be in prison, obviously. Stupid mother blanker, don't know what you've got. You're blanking with my life. These statements clearly indicate that Keith was very angry with Brandi and intended to murder her. When he was in jail awaiting trial, Keith made the ridiculous suggestion that Brandi's son Rylan could have been the shooter. Again, Rylan was only 6 years old, and there was absolutely no evidence of his involvement. Keith changed his story and admitted that he did kill Brandi, but claimed he acted in self-defense. He said that he lied because he did not want to tarnish Brandi's reputation. Moving to the exculpatory factors. To explain his marijuana retrieval behavior during the 911 call, Keith said that he was in the habit of grabbing the marijuana every time he entered the living room. That's pretty much it for the exculpatory factors. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I believe that Keith Johansen is guilty of first-degree murder? Yes, I believe Keith is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Really, he is guilty beyond almost any doubt. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Keith was self-centered, lazy, impulsive, irresponsible, perfidious, nefarious, immature, vindictive, petty, cold, callous, remorseless, erratic, had an unstable mood, had a sense of entitlement, and was exceedingly creepy. Both Keith and Brandi were addicted to methamphetamine. They were non-productive individuals who were willing to violate the law. The substance use may have trapped Brandi in a romantic relationship with Keith. For some reason, perhaps due to the effects of the substances, Brandi engaged in self-service behavior while communicating with somebody online. Keith felt as though this was a betrayal and went on an extended and immature tirade during which he denigrated, badgered, ridiculed, vilified, demeaned, berated, scolded, and threatened Brandi. The argument between the lovers was incoherent. Substances may have contributed to this disorganization. The couple was not very effective at communicating or even completing a single thought. It was like they were speaking in a language only they understood. It was a vast collection of half-thoughts and unfinished insults and threats. Each sentence or sentence fragment was a grab bag of menace and incomprehension. To say that Keith was not articulate is the understatement of the century. His tirade looked like the output of a poorly designed random expletive generator. This is one of those cases where if I deliberately generated a humorous paraphrase, you may not know whether it was comedy or his actual speech. Like if I paraphrased Keith as, "You blanking blank blank, why would you blank the blank when I blank the blanking blank? What the blank blank?" People would hear that and think, yeah, that sounds exactly like Keith. 2 days after this terrible and nonsensical argument, Keith shot Brandi twice with his 9mm pistol. Keith probably would have only shot once, but the first bullet did not kill her because it was made of rubber. He had a habit of loading his weapons with 1 or 2 cartridges fitted with rubber bullets because Brandi had 2 negligent discharges. The idea here was that if Brandi did this again, it would not cause as much damage. The reasoning that Keith used to make his decision offers a window into his amazing genius-level thinking. I can just imagine him walking up to a no smoking sign next to a propane tank and thinking, it's okay, I can still smoke, I'll just use a smaller cigarette. After murdering Brandi, Keith did not know what to do. He decided that he would accuse Brandi of being the shooter. Later, he realized how ridiculous that story was, so he switched to a self-defense narrative. Keith was so arrogant and overconfident that he actually believed he would be found not guilty at trial. He rejected 2 plea deals, one for 25 years to life and one for 50 years in prison. He believed that if he could just get on the stand, he could convince a jury that Brandi was a maniac who was high on methamphetamine, and he was simply protecting his own life. Keith did not understand how other people perceived him. Predictably, he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Even though he was sent there based on something that happened in a romantic relationship, Keith did not sour on the idea of finding love. In an online profile, he said he was looking for a cool girl to vibe with and possibly meet someday. His impressive credentials include being the leader of his prison band. Keith described himself as an awesome hippie who was outgoing, funny, and chill. He also referred to himself as smart, which establishes that his habit of being deceptive is still firmly entrenched. Now moving to my final thoughts. I think the lesson learned in this case is that substance use can lead to many hazards that people may not expect. A person who is addicted may be concerned about medical problems, career problems, or maybe even legal problems, but they may not be aware that using substances could place them in contact with dangerous people. This could include a romantic partner. Brandi stayed in a destructive relationship with a jealous, angry, and homicidal man, probably because She was addicted to substances. She was along for the ride no matter what Keith did, no matter how extreme his behavior was, no matter how clear it was that he was going to murder her. That is how seductive substances are. Some people value them above everything else, including life itself. Those are my thoughts in the case of Keith Johansen and Brandi Celenza. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon.